Good morning. It is a Wednesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. It would usually be a Would You Rather Wednesday edition, but decided with so much going on in the last 24 hours that we would just table Would You Rather Wednesday. It'll be back, I promise, next Wednesday. We'll be right back to the same fun and frivolity. And you can always pose your own Would You Rather Wednesday questions. When we started this years ago, that was part of the game, but be honest, you guys don't feel like carrying your end of the load. It's kind of frustrating. Love you. You're very special. You're very pretty. A lot to do as we react to many Orioles moves. Obviously, there is plenty of warranted debate about the significance of the Orioles moves, but they did make them, that part to be sure. Coming up in a few minutes, our buddy Mike Bordick joins us. Later on this hour, we'll chat with J.J. Cooper, executive editor of Baseball America. He wrote something yesterday trying to break down why the Trevor Rogers moves make sense after Orioles fans started freaking out about it. In the 11 a.m. hour, Eno Sarris from Fangraphs and The Athletic will try to make sense of both the Trevor Rogers moves and the other moves the Orioles made. And before we get out of here today, we will make a trip to Aberdeen. We haven't done that in a while. Catch up with Ironbirds outfielder Reed Trimble, whose OPS is very good. Batting average, could use a little bit, but getting on base at a nice clip. We'll catch up with Reed Trimble before we get out of here today. So all of that coming up on the program. Lost in the shuffle, the Orioles won a baseball game last night, which was pleasant. 6-2 over the Blue Jays. Ramon Arias, I had a couple people that were mad at me because I didn't make Ramon Arias man of the match. And look, he absolutely was in consideration. It was just that I didn't think he, carried them offensively. I thought he had a nice night. It was weird. And the Corbin Burnes thing, to be fair, because Corbin Burnes was man of the match, there is one goofy element to Corbin Burnes. Look, I think is that 19 quality starts now for Corbin Burnes? Is that the number? I apologize. I probably should have had that. I believe that's correct. Corbin Burnes, 18th quality start of the season for Corbin Burnes. There is one goofy thing about Corbin Burnes' numbers. He goes 6 2/3, just 4 hits, 3 walks. So 7 base runners in 6 2/3 innings, that screams like an outstanding that you get that, you take it every time, that's ace stuff. The weird part about his line from last night, and it's something that we don't talk about in baseball because it's very nerdy. I understand that when the stat says walks and hits per innings pitched, it doesn't say base runners per innings pitched. But it's a little goofy that we don't include hit batters when it comes to whip. I don't know why we haven't addressed that yet, but it's a bit silly that because it says walks and hits, we feel inclined to be like, well, we can't include hit batters. The truth is that he actually put 9 guys on base over 6 2/3 innings. And so maybe I should be a bit more inclined to say, there's room in there for Ramon Arias to get one. But I didn't. I gave it to Corbin Burnes, and that's the reality. And frankly, he deserves to probably have more than the 5 that he has now this season, so I'm not going to apologize too much about it. He's been great, but it is a little bit weird last night specifically because the 2 hit batters does mean he really did put 9 guys on base over 6 2/3. Not to say that means that he didn't have a good start. He did, and it was a quality start. He's allowed just the 2 earned runs, but one of those kind of weird things about last night's start and the way that we qualify whip. For whatever reason, we don't include hit batters, and yet we give great significance to the number. In all, obviously a very nice win for the Birds. And, the other thing that's worth pointing out, we are at the point of the season, because of the deadline, where there should be a little bit more difference between the haves and the have-nots. And that might be beneficial to a team that's trying to stockpile wins. Also, obviously, the Phillies not helping the Orioles much this week as, the Jazz Chisholm acquisition looks really good at the moment for the New York Yankees. Already 4 home runs In his first 3 games as a Yankee, they keep winning, so the Orioles need to keep winning. They'll wrap up the series this afternoon with Grayson Rodriguez on the mound, but Corbin Burns, man of the match from last night. All right, let's get into it. Orioles yesterday, they do make 3 more moves, 3 more significant moves, because they also made a couple of minor league moves. Obviously, they acquired Trevor Rogers for Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. They acquired Gregory Soto from the Phillies for Seth Johnson, another pitching prospect. And they acquired Eloy Jimenez, of all people. Weird, but he does swing the bat right-handed, and in fairness, he has been productive against lefty. It's weird when you don't expect him to be Eloy Jimenez anymore, that you can kind of look at it and be like, I can make this make sense, as long as you're not judging it in the context of what we once thought Eloy Jimenez was supposed to be. If you're only judging the context of he's a platoon player, you can be like, I guess I can see it. And that's where you are with Eloy Jimenez. Let's talk more about what the Orioles did and did not do. Joining us now, of course, Orioles Hall of Famer, 105.7 The Fan, Baltimore baseball tonight, the Baseball Warehouse, the League of Dreams, the whole deal. He's our buddy Mike Bordick, and he's back with us on GCR. Bordy, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, Glenn, I'm good, man. How are you?
My head is still spinning from everything that's happened in the last few days, man. There has been a lot, and I haven't even mentioned that Jackson Holliday's back yet, so there's a lot going on there. Mike, it's always silly to do like trade deadline grades, because who knows how things are going to play out for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
But what is your biggest takeaway, combining the moves from yesterday with the Eflin move and the Austin Hayes trade from last week? What is your biggest takeaway from what the Orioles have done and what the Orioles did not do at the deadline?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed.
Okay.
I think we all got our hopes up when Corbin Burns was landed this offseason and thought, oh, my gosh, they're really going to make a splash. And I'm not taking anything away. I like Eflin, the addition. But the rest of the guys, I don't know, man. We're just kind of hoping that they can kind of rekindle some flames they had a couple years ago. And I know Eloy Jimenez is that great example. I mean, he seems to be. I mean, he's coming from a losing team. Yeah, will a change of scenery maybe be good? I think the Orioles are hoping that he'll be like Aaron Hicks was. And I'm not sure about that. I think Aaron Hicks, had a little bit more game in him. And I don't know. I think this is a risky move. And I'm glad I'll tell you what they did. They filled all the spaces they needed that were question marks. Did they do it with the front end guys? I don't know. Maybe it was the only group that was available,
right.
But they filled some gaps, but there are question marks. I mean, some of the guys that are out in the bullpen, are they going to be able to throw strikes? I think about, we were all excited. We got Fuji from the A's last year. Throws 100 miles an hour, but can't throw a strike. Can't be trusted at the end of a ball game, and never even, made the postseason roster. That's what I worry about with a couple of these arms. I know they have bigger arms. These guys throw mid-90s. Last night, Sir Anthony threw 98 to finish the game. So That's a big arm. But I worry about the command from the lefty Soto, and I just feel like there are question marks. We're all hoping that, the Orioles can continue to work the magic they have with some of the waiver wire picks. And this almost seems like a glorified waiver wire pick, only we lost a bunch of minor league players for it.
I don't think anything you said there is unfair, Mike. Let me follow up on 2 thoughts, if I could. If the answer was, hey, you guys saw what it cost to rent Tanner Scott, you guys saw what it cost to rent Yusei Kikuchi, who hasn't even been good this season. We wanted to swing big, but the price of swinging big would have been, Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo, the top guys in the organization. Would you be able to defend the decision if the answer is the price of pitching in particular just got so out of whack at the deadline that they couldn't justify paying those prices for the pitchers that were available?
I absolutely respect that. I really do. And I think that the moves that were made, I think were smart organizational moves.
Right.
I really do. I think they filled holes. I I think they had some players that they thought were probably going to collect rust in the minor leagues with the depth they have in the big leagues and some of the prospects in AAA. So I think organizationally it was smart, and I know they put a lot of effort into this, and I know they made everybody in the organization feel good about just now they're more comfortable with how the roster looks for the next couple years, right? They've got Eflin for another year. They've got Rogers for 2 more years. They've got the bullpen pieces that will help, I think, add for a couple more years. So there are pieces there that have created depth, and I think just a little bit more assuredness is how the 40-man roster is going to shake out. But, man, you know as well as I do, when you go into a postseason, you better have a couple big back-end arms. And I feel like the next 2 months are going to be a tryout for what arms are going to be trusted enough for the back end of this Orioles bullpen.
So let's go there. Mike Bordick is with us here on GCR. And, Bordy, I'm writing about it for PressBox today. The one thing, like, as I can defend a lot of this, but the one thing I can't come up – if you ask me right now, can the Orioles win the World Series, I would say maybe, but I'm guessing the back end of the bullpen will be their undoing, right? Like, that's my big take at the moment. I can't defend the structure of the back end of the bullpen today, and I could be proven wrong, right? Like, Soto has some closing experience in Detroit, and, you know, Dominguez, there's things to like about him, obviously, but it felt like at worst you had to come up with a complement to Craig Kimbrell, someone that you could rely on in at least some of these occasions in order to keep Craig Kimbrell rested. The truth was, I think most of us were in the department that said, you need to do better than Craig Kimbrell. You need to get someone who might be your A closer moving forward, and just continuing to trust that Craig Kimbrell is going to be able to be the good version. That, to me, is the one that I can't wrap my head around. I just fear that that's the ultimate undoing of this team when we get to the postseason.
Well, you know, that's kind of the way I'm thinking, too. And I was, man, when I saw the Marlins in, I just felt like Tanner Scott was going to be our guy. You know, the best lefty out there. I think he would have been awesome for the back end of this Oriole bullpen. And now I think, like a lot of the pieces that the Orioles have landed over the last few years, you know, you just kind of keep your fingers crossed and you try to be optimistic. Has Elias hit on everything? No. I mean, Cole Irvin, look at that. In my opinion, Rogers, in a lot of ways, is similar to Cole Irvin. He doesn't throw as hard as he did, you know, back in 2021 when he was an all-star. He had arm problems. And that's a little bit of a concern. A pitcher with shoulder problems, that's a kind of a red flag. And you saw his velocity drop, you know, down to the low 90s. And that's why his earned run average was so, you know, elevated the last couple seasons. Yeah, Rogers has been on a nice little roll. So he's trending up. So maybe they feel like they've kind of stolen one right there. Let's hope, because they got him for a couple more years. But was that arm in the Oriole organization before? No. Cade Povich is not ready for the big leagues. The guy can't throw a strike in the big leagues. So in looking at it that way, yeah I think it's kind of an upgrade, and we've helped the organization.
Right. And by the way, that's exactly the bar that I have for the Rogers move, right? Like, you couldn't put Suarez, Povich, or McDermott back out there every fifth day at this point. And it's a very low bar, but they did clear that bar with this move. And then, to your point, like, who knows if they can find something with Rogers. But in the moment, what they did was clear the bar of, you had 3 guys that you had tried to put in the rotation, and you can even throw Irvin into that conversation, who was obviously DFA'd, 4 guys, and you just couldn't let any of them start anymore at this point. There was no way you could do that, and now you don't have to. So that's what I can say about that move at the moment. Mike, all of this to say, right, a lot of this really does seem to come down to, again, are the guys that are on the team going to be better, right? And I think in some instances, I think we can expect that Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman probably are going to be better than what we've seen for the last couple of weeks when they've been slumping. If there's reasonable improvement in areas where it can be expected, can you find yourself saying, yes, this is still a team that has a chance, obviously with the caveat being the back end of the bullpen that we just discussed?
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that. You know, timing is everything. I think the Orioles have the best talent in the game, the best young talent, that's for sure. I think a couple of their young superstars have just gone through, oh, did I lose you?
No, we got you, Mike.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think a couple of the young superstars just went through, a couple months of incredible challenges. And I don't know that, a lot of us don't realize, how mental this game actually is. You can have an incredible skill set, but then all of a sudden when your routine gets disrupted, when different things are happening, when all of a sudden you're thrust into the spotlight and considered, the best dynamic duo in baseball, and Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson are going to lead the Orioles to the World Series, and they're both in the All-Star game. There's just a lot of stuff that I think young players have a hard time sometimes compartmentalizing it, right? To put it in the right place so you're not thinking about it in the game. And I just think some things caught up to them. I think they'll settle back in and be stronger in the second half. They really have to be, because I think they're just so important to the success of this team. But we've seen guys in the past step up. Listen, Ryan Mountcastle last year, the month of August, he carried this team. Anthony Santander, the last 2 months, has literally carried this team. It's just been unbelievable to watch his offensive production. Cedric Mullins is starting to heat up again. The beauty of the Baltimore Orioles is that they really represent the team aspect, I think, of winning. Typically, incredibly solid defense all the way around the field. Typically, they run the bases incredibly well, better than any other team in baseball, if you ask me. Mateo's loss was huge because that's an impact base runner and an incredible defender. Yeah, they missed him, and it showed up the other day when Westberg had to go in to play shortstop. But I just think they're still a top 5 team in baseball, and now we hope that one of these guys emerges as just a consistent big league piece that can really help this team, get over the threshold. I think once you make it to the postseason, I love our big three. I love Grayson. I love Eflin. And, of course, Corbin Burns is going to win the Cy Young. I mean, he's just unbelievable. Night after, start after start, just doing great things. Yeah, absolutely, the bullpen's got to stabilize a little bit. But I think these guys with the additions, it's going to challenge them a little bit. A couple guys have to emerge, and I think that's the biggest hope. Let's hope Cano can kind of stabilize a little bit, and one of these pieces, that Elias picked up from the Phillies can really kind of emerge as a trusted piece in the back end.
All right, before we let you go, Mike, the guy that it gets lost in this conversation because the deadline is the return, of course, of Jackson Holliday, and the expectation that with Connor Norby being shipped out, he is, again, your everyday second baseman. I guess, what are you looking for in his return? What are you monitoring in the first few games to see not just how he handled the disappointment of the failure the first time up, but also obviously then, his rehab and coming back from the injury? What are you watching most significantly with Jackson Holliday in these first few weeks back?
Well, hopefully he can get off to a good start. Just, a good at-bat, a solid contact will really help him settle in, make a nice play defensively, something like that. But I obviously, the offensive production, I mean, he was overmatched. He was trying to do way too much when he first came up. I think most players, and we've witnessed this with a lot of the Oriole players that have had to go up and then back down, it's good. I know they call it a reset now, but I think having the taste of it, seeing what it's all about, and then all of a sudden realizing, well, geez, I was doing this, I was doing that, controlling the body, controlling the mind a little bit better, and watching his teammates do good things on TV, I think he realizes that he can be a part of this. So I think just relaxing will help him. I am concerned a little bit just defensively. I know he made the plays, but there were some situational things where he still didn't really know where to go as far as cutoffs and relays. And, the Orioles have to stay consistent with that. They just have to play good situational baseball, take care of the baseball, and know where they're throwing the ball every time.
Mike Bordick, let's get in all the plugs. What can we talk up for you, my friend?
Well, I appreciate it, that you ask about and talk about the League of Dreams, our incredible nonprofit that helps special needs kids the opportunity to play, all sports now. Baseball and softball are kind of our conduit, but I encourage everybody to check it out at leagueofdreams.org. And of course, the Baseball Warehouse, always doing good things to help the game of baseball. We're out in the community. We got a great clinic going on down on Elk Ridge. Dempsey's over there right now. I'm going to be heading back over there on Friday. So it's just fun to kind of give back and help kids, play the game the right way. So appreciate you asking.
Always appreciate you, my friend. Let's talk again real soon. Thank you, buddy.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Mike Bordick with us here on GCR. Orioles, of course, playing at 12:30 today in the finale of their series against the Blue Jays, and Jackson Holliday will bat 8th today, playing second base. James McCann is catching, so
he's catching.
I guess he's good. They put Blake Hunt on the roster for like 5 seconds, and then with all of the flurry of roster moves they have to make, like they still have to get Eloy Jimenez on the roster.
So Hunt would be the one to go back down.
Blake's I think he's already gone, if I saw correctly today. They've trying to keep up with the Orioles transactions is nearly impossible this week because there are a lot of people that assume that there still has to be one more. All right, so today they optioned.
He's down. Yep.
Yeah, they optioned Hunt and Vavra. Obviously, they recalled Jackson Holliday. They activated Soto, but that math doesn't work because Soto's a pitcher. You got to have.
Does he replace Irvin?
Yeah, I guess. But then still somebody's got to go for Rogers when they put Rogers on the roster.
Well, they also outrighted he wasn't on the big league roster, but Levi Stout.
That's that 40-man, the 40-man
okay.
roster. That's one thing. But like the actual 26-man roster is where I'm still struggling with this.
Right.
Dude, it's impossible for me to try to. I don't know what the rules are after you trade for someone. How quickly does if Rogers isn't pitching until say Saturday, does he have to go on the roster today because they traded for him yesterday, or can they play some games there in order to wait until Saturday? I don't. I'm just being straight up with you. I don't know what the rules are for these things. I'm sorry. I'm not used to the Orioles acquiring so many players in the span of 24 hours. It's just not something that typically has happened. But like Rogers at the moment is not on the roster. Eloy Jimenez at the moment is not on the roster. Those two guys will go on the roster. So there are still 2 more moves that have to be made in the coming days on top of what they've already done. I assume that Birch Smith has pitched well. I don't want to overstate that. I don't know if they're at a place where they're considering DFAing Albert Suarez. That seems aggressive, but it feels like it's got to be one of the two of them for Rogers. And then Jimenez, I guess the only question is, do they DFA Arias? I don't think so. They've had plenty of chances to do that, and they've chosen not to. So it would either come down to, do they DFA Pache or do they send Heston Kjerstad back down? Boy, this city would burn over another option for Heston Kjerstad, but I think they want to have Pache on the playoff roster. I can't justify Pache being on the roster. But they want that late inning base runner, and again, unless they can convince him that he's hurt. That's the thing that I said when they acquired him last week. If you can do the Ubaldo pothole with Christian Pache, all good. Because I do think Pache has something to offer to a playoff roster. There is value in late inning base runner, defensive replacement. But that is not a role that I have ever thought was warranted on a 26-man Major League roster when you need these guys to play. And you acquired your right-handed hitting outfielder. You got that. If Eloy Jimenez is going to be on the team, then that's your right-handed hitting outfielder. A world in which
Pache,
both Jimenez and Pache are in the lineup together, Could you imagine that? By the way, Rutschman getting a true day off today. not a DH day. He's getting a true day off today, which in fairness, he's actually been hitting the ball better in the last couple of days. It hasn't resulted in a lot of, I know he had a base hit last night, but he has hit the ball better. There's no doubt about that. Results still mixed, but he's hit the ball better, but he gets a true off day today. All right. Still a lot more fallout from the trade deadline to discuss. Let's dive deeper into Trevor Rogers. Let's find out more about why it is that the Orioles feel like that was a risk worth taking. By the way, noteworthy, we're taking a break first, but yeah, it's okay. We'll get there, man. Don't worry about it. Grant's he's doing his
You led the intro. I thought you were about to say.
No, I was going to set that up to then take a break.
Okay, go ahead.
That's the way that goes. J.J. Cooper from Baseball America will tell us more about Trevor Rogers in a minute. I don't know if you guys saw, but Connor Norby was optioned by the Marlins. I give up.
No way.
Give up. Kyle Stowers batting third for the Marlins today. My buddy Phil Backert from the Fantasy Channel at SiriusXM tells me that he had heard the Marlins are interested in Norby playing third base, so that might be the reason, is that they just want him to go down and spend a little bit of time playing third base. But, like, Jesus, dude, you acquired a 24-year-old. Like, and you're awful. What? You can't give him the opportunity to learn third base at the major league level.
On a rebuilding
team. You're the
team.
worst baseball team alive. Like, my God.
That's bad.
I feel terrible. I sent Connor a text this morning. Now I feel worse. I definitely said, like, really excited for your opportunity. Because Connor and I, if you guys remember, had a whole conversation about that. Oh, God. Anyway, we'll talk to J.J. Cooper next. Today's show brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour. If you missed it last night, Stan, Ross, and Luke got together to go over the trade deadline. You can find that show right now. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab or go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. PressBoxOnline.com/video. It is a Wednesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8, with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now, and on the cover, Glenn Clark and Stan the Fan Charles sit down for a sports conversation with Maryland Governor Wes Moore, discussing the Orioles and Ravens stadium leases, the future of horse racing in Maryland, and how his own football career at Johns Hopkins shaped him as a leader. This is also our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities in Maryland for your family to take advantage of throughout the summer. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores, or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Wednesday edition of the program. Today's show also brought to you by County Sports Zone. High school sports season is just around the corner. Remember, every score from every area of the state, private and public, all high school sports season long will be available for you at countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. All right, this man attempted to make some sense of the Orioles' acquisition of Trevor Rogers yesterday over at Baseball America. He is their executive editor. He is J.J. Cooper, and he's with us now here on GCR. J.J., it's Glenn. It's good to chat with you. I know it's been an insanely busy couple of days for you and your crew. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us.
It has been. It has been insanely busy. It also has been fun because this is what we love to do.
That's a good.
Yeah, we're sorting through all of this, and it's fun. It's fun to see kind of all these teams making all these moves because, man, there were a ton of moves.
There sure were. It's not digging ditches. There's no doubt about that. All right, so the Trevor Rogers thing is, like, I've tried to sort of wrap my brain around it a few times. At the lowest bar, it clears the fact that the Orioles couldn't continue to put Albert Suarez or, Cade Povich or Chase McDermott into the rotation. Those guys just couldn't pitch every fifth day at this point for a team that's trying to win. So that's the lowest bar. What might the higher bar be for Trevor Rogers as he arrives in Baltimore?
He's got 2 years and 2 months of team control remaining. So this isn't just a move. I think this is the move that helps him in the short term in a modest level. But now you see, okay, can the Orioles do what they've done with a ton of pitchers before? This is a guy who he sits 92 now. He used to sit 95. If he can get that velocity back, and he's still young, but if he can get that velo back, he could be much more than a back-of-the-rotation starter. So that's kind of the long-term question, but adding a lefty, especially in that ballpark, to give you just average or average-esque innings in the rotation is valuable too, because they need that.
I agree with those. I guess I am a little bit split on whether or not the Orioles do have like the special sauce, because I feel like when I was convincing myself of that earlier this year, it was because we were watching Cole Irvin put together 8 consecutive starts of 2 or fewer earned runs, and Albert Suarez being a revelation, and here we are a few months later, and we're like, right, neither of those guys is the example that we really want to hold up at the moment. Can we still believe that there is a special sauce in the Orioles pitching development lab?
Yeah, those guys are free talent level players who they turned into useful big leaguers, right? Albert Suarez there's never been a point in Suarez's career where he's been considered a valuable big league starter. They got him to this level. Like, if you take a guy who's considered a fringe big leaguer and you get him to be a semi-productive big league starter, you've moved that guy a long ways. Trevor Rogers is like Kyle Bradish. When they acquired Kyle Bradish, no one viewed him as a quality big league starter prospect, and they turned him into that. Like, I would say that Bradish is an example that we're talking about. There have been guys like that over the years, But the other part of this is like because I went interacted with a number of Orioles fans yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there is an overrating of
the
like
other side,
Al Stowers' value.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Let me get one more on Rogers before I go there, if I could, JJ. The stuff we've seen over the last 2 months, and it's hard when I dive in because everybody keeps reminding me, like, the peripherals aren't great. But yet, like, the numbers overall for the last 2 months have improved significantly. Is there anything that can define that, or is that maybe you don't want to hang your hat on it because he's not actually pitching better, he's just getting better results, when you look at, like, say, his FIP?
I will say it this way. I would be shocked if Trevor Rogers starts a playoff game for them this year.
Okay.
I don't think they expect him to start a playoff game for them this year. That's not what this acquisition was. They need innings to get to the playoffs. But come playoff time, we kind of, obviously the loss of Bradish really hurts on this, but you still look at this and say, okay, I think the acquisition of Eflin, is probably more important for that potentially. But I look at the totality of this is no, I don't think Trevor Rogers is going to be a dramatic difference maker for the Orioles in their rotation the rest of this year. They don't need a difference maker, Bobby. I would still be shocked if they didn't make a move, I would still expect them to win the AL East this year. And then you have the question of, okay, what are they going to do in the playoffs? And the thing I would say is, look at every team who's at the top. Look at the AL, right? The Orioles right now, to me, have fewer questions than any of the other top teams. Cleveland is the team that has a better record right now than the Orioles. I give the Guardians all kind of credit, but I don't know how they've done it, because if you look at the lineup, the Orioles lineup's better. If you look at the rotations, the Orioles rotation's better. If you look at the bullpen, that's the one thing I'll say. The Guardians' bullpen's been incredible this year. Right. But if you said that these two teams match up in the playoffs, I'm taking the Orioles right now.
All right, let's talk more about all these things. We're chatting with JJ Cooper from Baseball America. Man, we're going to end up going too long. I'm going to have to slow this down. I want to get your thoughts on Norby and on Stowers, because inherently I don't think I disagree with you that the value I think, and even they would never say it out loud, I think the Orioles largely view Stowers as, I don't even want to say throwaway because that's mean, but it's not that much more than that. Norby, I also, everybody brings up he was blocked here, he wasn't going to get the opportunity. True. The only thing I would say is that Norby still to me was an asset. They used Joey Ortiz in order to go get Corbin Burns this past offseason. It feels like I don't think it's unfair to suggest that maybe it was possible that at some point, whether it was in the past or in the future, Norby could have been helpful for a better piece than Rogers.
Joey Ortiz is a much better prospect to trade in a trade than Connor Norby. They're not in the same category to me. They're not. Joey Ortiz is a guy who can play shortstop, he can play third base, he can play second base and above average and hit to some level. Connor Norby is a second baseman who has some limitations defensively at second, and a corner outfielder who has some limitations defensively in the corner outfield. That's a very different dynamic. Like you've seen it with the Brewers. The Brewers got Ortiz, and it's like, okay, Ortiz can play third if we need him to play third. He can play short if we need him to play short. He can play second if we need him to play second. And they value defense. They've got three shortstops out there most of the time between him and Terang and Adames. Connor Norby's not that. I mean, this is nothing against Connor Norby. I think Connor Norby is going to have a solid career. I think he's a useful, like he's going to be a regular for the Marlins, I would say very shortly. But I do think that Orioles fans, when I was having these interactions, are viewing Norby at a level beyond. Because, again, when we look at that trade, like if we compare those two trades, because people did compare those to me, what the Orioles gave up yesterday for Rogers has zero comparison to what they gave up for Corbin Burns. They gave up two better players, significantly better players, in my opinion, in that trade for Burns and a draft pick. Yesterday, they traded let's just be clear, when Stowers again, I think Stowers has a chance to be a starter for the Marlins. Stowers is already on the second option. Before long, the Orioles were going to turn around and go, okay, we're out of options on this guy. What can we get for him? because that's where they were headed to, because he is not going to play for them. But on top of that, nothing against Stowers, nothing against, he is a second division regular who may be a first division regular. He was 5th, 6th, 7th on that Orioles depth chart. Mm-hmm. When we talk about Norby, though, like if Norby was, at this point, Norby is far enough along in his big league career, in his minor league career, that there was an opportunity this year between Holiday coming up and struggling and the fact that Mateo can play at numerous positions. If the Orioles thought that Norby was this difference maker for the lineup, the opportunity was there. They did not. And he has over 1,000 AAA plate appearances. There's no part of this where it's like, well, he just needs more time. It's because he's a good player. He is he's going to be a big league regular, but he's not the kind of difference maker who, I'll put it this way, like we obviously didn't see Crochet traded. We didn't see Skubal traded. Mm-hmm. Connor Norby's not the kind of guy who anchors a trade like that.
Oh, no word. No doubt. Right. No doubt about that. I guess it's more like looking at, like, for example, the price that was paid for Eric Fetty and feeling like, I feel like you could have done that in a package that included Connor Norby.
And more.
No, yeah, sure. Like, I'm not suggesting it's Norby alone.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but they still could do that. They still have a ton of players that can do that. If now that is the one. But I will say also, I can't explain to you why you think Kikuchi cost a lot more.
It really does feel like it upended the deadline, right? Like that. Everything that you were trying to do, the Fetty deal was before the Kikuchi deal, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh Jesus Christ! Like, how does anybody get pitching now if that's what renting Yusei Kikuchi does?
And the only one that happened after that where you say, okay, the cost seemed to be less was Flaherty. Like, you look at it, what the Dodgers paid for Flaherty seems like. So let's start with, obviously, I can't imagine any scenario where the Orioles are like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go out and get Flaherty again. But on top of that, the cost seemed a little less. But then we have the reports that, the Athletic, Ken Rosenthal reported last night that there were medical questions that kind of squashed Yankees Flaherty trade. Okay, well, that explains why the cost was a little bit less.
All right, you bring up the bullpen, J.J. Cooper. I would tell you that I can be on board. Like, I can, even if it's not enthusiastic, I can be on board with the Orioles, the moves they made, and they addressed some needs, and I can do all of those things. What I can't do is tell you that I am confident in this team's ability to win the World Series, because the back end of the bullpen to me looks like you are asking for it to be a fatal flaw. And I think Dominguez can be helpful, and you can tell me a little bit more about Soto, because I'm not sure where he is between, impact arm and really just a loogie. But, the back end of the bullpen to me right now, I have so little faith in Craig Kimbrell to be the better version of Craig Kimbrell that we saw, because that was fleeting. I like Yennier Cano's temperament, but the actual results have not been good enough for me to have a lot of faith there. There's just so little that I have trust in the back end of the bullpen for me to think that that's going to be anything other than ultimately the undoing of this team.
Very possible. They've deepened it, but they didn't deepen it by adding a guy on top who you're like, okay, lights out, the ninth inning is now, no problem at all. They didn't add Devin Williams, who wasn't going to be traded. Right. But I mean, the problem with that is like, this is the big part of the trade deadline for all the moves that were made. One thing that also does stand out to me is how few impactful moves were made across baseball. Like, in a normal year, we have at least one or two of these, that upended the race trades. Juan Soto getting moved, Justin Verlander getting moved. A few years back, a couple of years now, but the Orioles trading Manny Machado to the Dodgers. One of those moves where you're like, okay, one of the better players in baseball just changed teams. We've all got to pay attention to this. This year, I agree with what you're saying. I would not say that the Orioles did. All the Orioles did is they added more useful innings in the pen, which is useful. And by the way, these trades, acquisitions of starters also theoretically lengthen your pen as far as innings eaters, because you're probably going to move a guy or two out of the rotation who could also take a role like that, all that. But it doesn't give you a better eighth inning, a better ninth inning. The problem with that is I do struggle to say, the one team that went out and kind of did that is the Padres.
Right.
Paid a pretty high price for it. And again, even in the Padres case, I don't think that they brought in guys to be like, oh, you're going to lock down the ninth. They brought in guys. Tanner Scott, I think, is going to be more like one of their guys. If Mason Miller
I take
had
that
been
as
available,
one of my
he's
guys,
hurt.
though. I'd sure be good with him being one of my guys. And I think I would think that the Royals should be in this conversation too, correct?
Well, but Hunter Harvey has already gotten hurt a little bit, and Lucas Erceg's a nice acquisition. He is. Yeah. But that's not also – you're not going to give Erceg the ball and say the ninth is yours. He's going to be a useful piece.
I feel like they could have used some more useful pieces, Jake. That's the tough part, right? Like, I feel like they needed to build themselves at least backup plans to Craig Kimbrell, and I just don't. I don't see. It feels like you're allowing Craig Kimbrell to drown, and it's unfair to say that because maybe he can harness it, but it feels like you're giving Craig Kimbrell the opportunity to drown the ship over the course of the next couple of months.
The key thing for this Orioles team, if they're going to win in October, it's going to be because they have a better lineup than anyone else. That's what it's going to be. They have a rotation where, if Corbin Burns got the ball, if Grayson Rodriguez has got the ball, you feel good about it. But more than anything, it is that, especially if Jackson Holiday, 2.0, his return to the big leagues, he doesn't need to be a star, but if he's just a league average offensively, right? If he's that, this is a lineup with exceptionally few holes. That's what this is all like. The Orioles, if you look at it, and if you said that, and now we compare that, if we compare that to the Yankees, the deadline's over, and the Yankees still have all kind of holes in their lineup. If you look at the Guardians have all kind of holes in their lineup post-deadline. Mm-hmm. This is going to be, if the Orioles do it, it's going to be because no other team can go around the lineup and say, we've got an above-average hitter at catcher. We've got an above-average at third base, shortstop, maybe second base, first base with kind of the first base / DH, and then right and left field, and center, okay, like maybe not. That's it. That's something that basically no other team in the playoff race right now can say.
Before I let you go, I know apparently he was poisonous in Chicago, but can you be on board with experimenting with platoon hitter Eloy Jimenez?
Sure, because it costs basically nothing.
Right.
You pretty much, that's one of those where it's like, I saw some people ask me does that make any sense? And I'm like, yeah, because all you got here is upside. You paid nothing basically in prospect talent for him. It was a salary dump. You're paying him some money, but that's only something that, Orioles ownership, which, that's only a concern for them. Not if you're a fan.
You're not picking up his option next season. That's not happening.
Oh, absolutely not. Unless he becomes, Eloy Jimenez we all expected 5 years ago. But let's say if he goes out and he looks better, okay, great. Cool. And if he doesn't, they could literally release him, because they haven't invested anything here. This is one of those hey, do you want to have a free trial of this? And it's I just got to remember to cancel my subscription at the end of the month before it kicks over into a bill.
JJ Cooper, what all can I plug for you, man?
Well, baseballamerica.com, we've ranked every prospect traded, so that's all 89. We've looked at what teams have done what. We're going to keep doing that. And we've also updated. One thing I'm really, for Baseball America subscribers, as these trades all happened, you all knew, those subscribers knew what these players were because we've got most all of them have been ranked in our updated top 30s. And if they haven't even made the 30s, we've written about them between standouts, spring training, interesting analytical players. If you're a BA reader, you kind of were prepped for the trade deadline. So baseballamerica.com.
And, of course, JJ Coop36 on Twitter is how you follow him. JJ, really appreciate it, man. Thanks for spending the time with us this morning.
No problem. Always happy.
JJ Cooper with us here on GCR. A lot in there. And, again, this is all in how you look at it situation. And I can't say the Orioles don't have a chance to win the World Series. It's not that they don't have any chance. But you're asking me predict what happens. My prediction is they get to the playoffs. I'm not as confident. J.J. Cooper is very confident they're winning the division. I am not as confident about that. We have to see what's going on with Garrett Cole. Clearly, that will be significant for the Yankees. And I don't think Jazz Chisholm is going to continue to rake like this, but it does seem like he has found some new life in New York. They get into the playoffs. My bet is at some point they are undone by the back end of their bullpen. And to the point, like, yes, part of that is my lack of faith in Craig Kimbrell, but it's also really my lack of faith that you can make up for. If Craig Kimbrell can't get it done, what's the backup plan? And that, to me, was the worst case for what they needed to do at the deadline, was come up with a better backup plan, and I don't see it. It was pointed out earlier, Dominguez, was elevating the fastball a little bit last night. Maybe in their minds, they believe Sir Anthony Dominguez can be the backup plan. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. But, crazier things have happened. Until I see it, it's hard for me to trust it. I just don't know that I see a backup plan for what if it goes wrong with Craig Kimbrell. And obviously it's going wrong with Craig Kimbrell. That's my issue. And I did write about it today at PressBoxOnline.com. I can justify the moves that were made. They're not enthusiastic. The only one that's enthusiastic is Eflin, and even that's, measured. We can't pretend like we didn't see Zach Eflin give up 10 hits that could have been more in his first start as an Oriole. It's measured. I think you can let Zach Eflin start a playoff game. And I wasn't comfortable with the guys that would have otherwise been starting playoff games. That's the passive thumbs up that I can give that. I don't think that you got an ace. I don't think that you got a top-of-the-rotation pitcher. I think you got someone that can be a playoff starter. That's as enthusiastic as I can be about any move that the Orioles made. The rest of them are, okay. Okay. My buddy Zach Moore, Pigtown Sports, said to me earlier today, I think the Orioles fleeced the Marlins. I can't do that. I get it. J.J. Cooper's point about, Connor Norby's probably not as good as Joey Ortiz, that might be true. But the common consensus has been that he is a better hitter than Joey Ortiz. And I'm not saying that he could have landed you Corbin Burns the way that Joey Ortiz did. Although, in fairness, it's looking more and more like it was a miracle. A miracle that the Orioles were able to get a year. Imagine how silly do you feel as the Brewers seeing what the Toronto Blue Jays got for a half a year of Yusei Kikuchi in comparison to what you got for a year of Corbin Burns? With no disrespect, Joey Ortiz, who has not been quite as good as the insane start that he got off to for the season, but has still been a very helpful piece to them. Even with that, my God, you got to be like, maybe we should have waited a few months. Maybe we should have held out a little bit. Let these teams get desperate at the deadline and then make the move. Yikes. I can't go back to, hey, these guys were blocked, so you just go ahead and move them. Because it's the thing I eternally say. They're blocked until next week when they aren't anymore. They're blocked today, and then what happens when someone gets hurt? You don't even want to speak it into existence. But if Jordan Westburg gets hurt next week, suddenly Connor Norby isn't blocked anymore. He's an everyday player. That's the tricky part about when we have this conversation about a player. Yes, we can say the Kyle Stowers thing, I'm really not worked. I don't think you could get much for Kyle Stowers. I just don't think that day was ever coming. And, running out of options, I can justify Kyle Stowers fine. The Norby one is tougher. But it will entirely be predicated on what you get out of Trevor Rogers. Because if to the point that is made, if you get out of Trevor Rogers just solid, just good enough, that he can take up a roster spot, handle innings. If you get that out of him, fine, for the next couple of seasons. I can be okay with that. No one is speaking to me confidence, and we'll try again with Eno Sarris, that like there's going to be a higher upside to Trevor Rogers. That you can tap into whatever there was in 2021. And I'm that the Orioles can solve all pitching, thing. I'm my buddy Matt Torper was talking to me about that on what did Matt say? Matt, I'm sorry, Matt. It's hard for me to remember. I feel like you brought this up too. Like to go default back to the idea that the Orioles just have this special sauce when it comes to pitching. We were really starting to feel that. We really were. But Cole Irvin is literally so bad he's not here now, which is a bummer because he's a great guy, and I hate that. Albert Suarez cannot be a starting pitcher for a good baseball team. And those were kind of the examples we were using as to why we believe there was a special sauce. So, is there? Is there really? Are the Orioles really capable of getting more out of starting pitchers, big picture, than anyone else is? I don't know. We will continue to talk about all the moves that were made when we come back in. Eno Sarris, Fangraphs, and The Athletic. Get his thoughts on Rogers, get his thoughts on the other acquisitions for the Baltimore Orioles and where they are at this point. That's what we're doing today. Trade deadline fallout. It is a Wednesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Frederick Keys Baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimio Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an easy pass from driveeasymd.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your EasyPass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your EasyPass account. There, you just saved money with EasyPass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your EasyPass at driveeasymd.com.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, into the second hour of the program today. Again, Orioles, Blue Jays set to wrap up the series this afternoon, 12:30. Grayson Rodriguez on the mound, and Jackson Holliday is back and batting eighth for the Birds. Continuing to discuss the fallout from the trade deadline, Orioles make a flurry of moves. None overwhelming, but certainly potentially impactful. Let's talk more about some of what they did. Next guest, you, of course, see his stuff at The Athletic, Fangraphs. He is one of the godfathers of baseball analytics and deep thinking. He is Eno Sarris, and he is back with us here on GCR. Eno, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always good to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know, I am struggling, admittedly, because nothing that the Orioles did is something that I say, that is a disaster. But I think the question that's being fairly asked, did the Orioles really do anything that particularly improves their chances of winning the World Series?
I think Zach Eflin is a really competent, kind of number three. He can start a playoff game,
That's
or
fair.
third playoff game. He's a solid arm that is going to help a lot. Also, I kind of like the Eloy Jimenez trade, because just because you score runs and offense is a strength doesn't mean you can't improve a strength. And so I think he's better than the Orioles' worst hitter. And I think people will come to love him. I think he's an under the radar kind of last minute trade deadline guy that I like.
Yeah, there's a big difference in thinking that he's Eloy Jimenez versus can you be a platoon bat that can just be helpful a little bit. And to the point, without paying much for him, I can't really be down on that. The Trevor Rogers trade, and I know you wrote about it for The Athletic, and I want to get into it. It's the one that I feel like is most perplexing, because what I can give it is the Orioles couldn't continue to throw out, Albert Suarez or Cade Povich or Chase McDermott. They could not continue. It was untenable with any of those guys being in the rotation, and the bar, I think, is cleared with Trevor Rogers. But I think, right? But can it be any more than – is there – anything that we've seen over the last 2 months from Trevor Rogers that is actually improving versus just the results? Is there any world where he can get back to whatever they saw in 2021? Is there at all a next level to the Trevor Rogers acquisition?
My first read on the situation was that I hated this trade for Baltimore, and that I thought this was a terrible trade. And my reasoning for that is that if you look at projections, his projections are the same as Albert Suarez's. And the reasoning for that is that Trevor Rogers is down to 91 miles an hour recently, and he's 96 at his peak, 95 at his peak. And he's lost whatever good breaking ball he has. He's become just and his fastballs have gotten bad, so it's just a changeup. So anyway, I thought I would rather, as a good team that didn't need Trevor Rogers for the playoffs, or I would shop Norby and Stowers for a better option than Rogers. I would have either just gone along with Suarez for 3 and Povich for 2 or whatever it was, and muddled my way along with the fifth spot, because I was going to make the playoffs and they weren't going to be relevant in the playoffs anyway. But as over time, I've softened my stance a little bit, and what I've realized is Trevor Rogers is cheap. He's under control for a while. Norby and Stowers, as much as Orioles fans might like them, are getting older. Stowers is already 26. Norby's 24. In the world of prospect pedigree, once you start getting to 26, which is the peak age for players, you lose your trade value. So those guys were losing their trade value, and Rogers is under control for a while. And the last little bit is maybe they can find a breaking ball that works for Rogers. He's thrown more of a curveball before in the past instead of the hard slider he throws now. So maybe they see a tweak there, and maybe they see a tweak mechanically that can get him back the 2-3 miles an hour that he's missing. So I think it's like, hey, we think he's better than our current situation at number 5. He's cheap, and these players that we've traded away are kind of like getting close to spoiled milk status. So let's go get this guy while we can.
Again, nothing about that is like sounds even like the better version of what you just said isn't something that's enthusiastic as much as it's like okay, like sure this guy, right? Like maybe he can give you some innings. Like it's sort of like you could do worse, right? Like that's sort of that's the high end of the conversation. And I guess I'll come around to I'm okay with that. Like, I don't have anything enthusiastic to say about it, but I don't think it's a disaster. I think that really what's happened in Baltimore is that Norby and Stowers have been around for long enough that we just like them. Like, that's really what it's come down to. Like, we've known them for so long that they're kind of part of this thing, and so we like them, so it's a bummer for Orioles fans to give them up. It's not really about the reality of what they are.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, if you look at it sort of analytically and coldly, both of them have struggled with strikeout rates in the past. Neither of them is probably a defensive stalwart. So, if they were going to play in Baltimore, center field in the future is probably one of the places that might open up. And that's going away. So, that's not an option for them. So I think. Yeah, it was just like a overflow of riches situation. I do wonder, like, could they have gotten Eric Fetty?
That's the only one, right? Like, that's the only one that I come back to. And I feel like, did the Kikuchi thing ruin the pitching market at the deadline? Is that what – because the Fetty deal, 100%, you look back and say, you couldn't have put together a similar package to get Fetty?
Yeah.
And then I just wonder if, like, they were working on something else and – the Kikuchi deal ruined everything because now everybody said, yeah, by the way, that's now the price for pitching. You don't even get quality and you still have to overpay for it.
Well, it's possible that the White Sox just chose the Dodgers package over Norby and Stowers. And the reason I say this is the White Sox are so bad. It is so deeply bad in Chicago that they need the biggest upside they can get. They don't need to get somebody they can plug in. The Marlins have taken a different approach, which you can see from all of their trades. All of their guys were in AA and AAA and ready to go. They want to plug everybody back in next year and get better quickly. So they've taken a totally different tack. And so, that's why Norby and Stowers is better for them. And if you're shopping with the Marlins, I guess Rogers is the best thing to come away with.
Eno Sarris is with us here on GCR from, of course, Fangraphs as well as The Athletic. We're talking about the trade deadline, what the Orioles did and did not do. The only, again, because as I said, I can give, at least passive to your point about Eflin. I actually do think that Eflin is helpful. Like, I can be okay with the moves that were made. The one thing that I keep coming back to today is I can't really justify that Dominguez and Soto were enough for me to feel like the back end of this bullpen is going to be good enough to win a World Series. Like, it felt like you had to come up with at least a true plan B for Craig Kimbrell. And I just right now, if somebody said, hey, what are the Orioles going to do? I'm going to say they're going to get into the playoffs and then the bullpen is going to be their undoing because I just don't see the leverage arms that can guide you past the best teams in baseball.
I think, so you brought up the market cost when it came to Kikuchi. I think the market cost when it came to the very top end rental arms,
right?
Specifically Tanner Scott, I think that was where they shied away. I mean, they did some really interesting things. I think the Austin Hayes for Sir Anthony Dominguez and Christian Pache deal was one of the more interesting ones at the deadline. And so I give him an okay grade there. It's probably not an A. You're right. But I don't also know if the top end arm that would have, if you would have been solid with like Michael Kopech.
I guess like the Urseg deal is one that stands out to me, right? Like, that feels like that was a reasonable price to pay. Not for you're not getting Mason Miller, but you're getting someone that can be a genuine difference maker to try to win a World Series.
That's interesting. I have a Stuff Plus number that likes Sir Anthony Dominguez more than Lucius Urseg.
Okay,
so,
all right, fair enough.
But
Here's
the thing: command is hard to suss. And it's hard to suss for the relievers because their whole year can be a small sample size when it comes to command. And so I think command ends up being sometimes the purview of scouts. And so it might be that Baltimore turned to their scouts and said, hey, Sir Anthony Dominguez's command, is it doable? Is it not? And they probably came away with an answer they liked. This probably the same thing for Gregory Soto, right? Like both those guys are wild, high stuff, and so what you're banking on is their command foibles are just going to be not there for the right time, and that's sort of what happens with Kimbrel too. So right now they have three guys that could be closers for you, and the question is who's going to have the command at the right time. And I guess they're just saying if we have three of them, then one of them should have enough command to be our closer.
So that's to that point. You do believe that Dominguez can be in that conversation. That if this continues to go south with Kimbrel, Dominguez could be in the conversation to be his replacement.
Yeah, and the difference. And I love Cano. I'm not leaving Cano out, but the difference is that Cano's stuff leads a little bit more to contact and soft contact. So I think he's kind of the ideal setup man. Ideal guy to come in if there's guys on base, get a ground ball. Like he's a little bit more that guy, and that's why I'm focusing on Soto, Dominguez, and Kimbrel, who are more strikeout guys. It's kind of what you want in the end, and I think all three of them could be closers if the command is right at the right time.
Jackson Holliday returns to the major leagues today. What is your expectation for Jackson Holliday as he gets this next chance?
You don't do what he did in the minor leagues and find some level of production in the major leagues eventually. So I'm just going to chalk it up to, we saw a little bit of swing and miss in spring training, even when he was doing well. And, I think it's just a hole that major league pitchers are able to exploit that he's been obviously working on since he went down. So, it's something that he has to figure out, but I actually do believe he will figure it out. He's one of the special prospects in the game, and I know it didn't go well the first time, but I expect it to go better this time.
He is, so before I let you go, what was most impactful in a day or where there were a million trades, but not necessarily rock stars that were dealt? What to you over the last week was maybe the most significant in terms of the impact that it might have on this season and who ends up winning the World Series?
I think the Kikuchi trade was underrated. I mean, the Astros have had a furious run to get back to the top of their division, and they were really flagging when it comes to arms. And then the other one is Randy Arozarena to the Mariners, because that has become an arms race of a division. The Mariners could not score any runs. They added Randy Arozarena and Justin Turner, and they've scored like 6 runs a game since. I know it's just random. It's just baseball. Right. But, I think that the aura has changed in Seattle. When I was there on Tuesday last week, everyone was like, I don't know how we're going to score a run, and then they went out and got 2 big bats. So I think that division is fascinating. And the Kikuchi and Randy Arozarena trades were the biggest ones, of the trade deadline.
I was talking to my buddy, an all-time great guy, Dave Sims, like 2 weeks ago, and it was almost like he was just like, nah, this was fun, but like it was almost like he was just resigned to this is the reality of the Mariners at that point.
They have some demons to exercise there in Seattle. It reminds me of LOL Mets, which is kind of a hashtag about the Mets.
Yeah.
You where some things start to go a little bit wrong, and everyone goes, here we go again. You have to you have to get all the way there. You have to win some to get rid of those ghosts, and I hope they finally do it someday.
What all can I plug for you, man?
I'm about to do a piece that'll come up in the next couple of days, I think tomorrow on The Athletic, that'll be about all the young guys behind the trades. So it'll be about Norby and Stowers and guys who will maybe now get extended runs and extended looks on the lesser teams, the guys behind the trades. And also Rates and Barrels. We have a live stream tomorrow with Trevor May. It's always a lot of fun. And so people stop by and see that. That's our pod.
At Eno Sarris on Twitter. Really appreciate you. I know it's been a busy week. Thank you for squeezing us in for a few minutes this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Eno Sarris from The Athletic and Fangraphs with us here on GCR. It's so funny how he was like, well, at first I thought it was an awful trade. And then I came around to it and I was like, it doesn't. Like, you still can't come around to good. Like, you still can't come around to helpful. And you just sort of come around to meh. And that's essentially what I would tell you, is that, like, I can come around to meh. Which ain't, it's obviously not enthusiastic. It's not a stamp of approval. It's just okay, I can get it. Mike Elias has been meeting with reporters this morning. Confirms Albert Suarez moving into a long relief role, which, again, we assume the only question was, hey, you still have to make one more roster move. I guess that means Birch Smith. That's just the reality of it. And that's fine. I mean, it is. Birch Smith has been helpful, but, like, my God, it's not no use crying over Birch Smith. Doesn't appear as though he's answered anything, just in skimming the various beat reporters that are there. Not seeing anything about what, like, the plans are for Pache and some of the other areas where it feels like they just have redundancy. I think it's a fair question to ask about where's the roster spot come for Kobe Mayo now? And probably without them telling you, it's confirming what a lot of us have wondered aloud, which is that they are looking to hold on to make sure that they retain his rookie status for next season so that they can try to take advantage of the PPI program next year and recoup future draft picks for Kobe Mayo. And that they believe they can justify that for the next, the difference would be 3-4 weeks. But still, if someone doesn't get hurt, where's the plan for Kobe Mayo? There was a thought that the Orioles were going to trade Ryan Mountcastle. They didn't do that. So where are the at-bats coming? As I've said, I can't trust Heston Kjerstad playing left field. And since you didn't move Cedric Mullins, Cedric Mullins is going to be your primary center fielder, and your primary left fielder is going to be Colton Cowser. And I think that's the best thing for this baseball team for the rest of this year. We'll see where they are at the end of the year. But for the rest of this season, I think the best thing is that combination. And then when they play against lefties, it'll just be a question of, do you give, in particular, Cowser the opportunity to try to hit against lefties? He's not been as bad against lefties this season as Cedric Mullins has. Does Pache stay on the roster, and do you feel the need to let him play against lefties? Again, he doesn't hit them. He did a little bit last season in a small sample size. But this year he has not hit lefties. Eloy Jimenez presumably is in the lineup, but if he's in the lineup, I am still confused about the roster construction of this team. I am still confused about what that looks like for a little bit. And I know that a few people were putting out like potential. I think Jacob Calvin-Meyer yesterday did like here's a hypothetical what the lineup would be against lefties. Here's a hypothetical what the lineup would be against righties. And yeah, that's the guy we haven't even talked about. Is Slater being put on the roster? He hasn't hit anything, but he has in the past hit lefties in his career. They're really giving Slater a roster spot. Like they do not have room for all of these guys. Somebody's got to go. And I get that they wanted to improve. They wanted to have more right-handed bat, but somebody has to go. The problem is none of the Jimenez, Pache, or Slater. I don't know of anything. I don't know nearly enough about Slater. Is there a world where Slater could play an infield spot? Has he ever done that? Jimenez can't. Pache can't. The question is, could you sacrifice Arias, who, again, every time we have this conversation, has a night like last night. Every time it's time for Arias to go, he ends up having a night like last night where you're like, all right, he's not going anywhere. You cannot get all of these guys on the roster. You can't do it. There's just no way. Even if you send Kjerstad down, which people will lose their minds about, but you can do, you can't put Slater and Jimenez and Pache on the team. It cannot be done. There's no math for that. It's short of somebody getting hurt.
To answer your question about Slater in the infield,
yeah,
no.
Okay.
He's played majority. If he'd done any infield inside the first base, and he's had one game each at second and third, so really little experience. So no.
I'm just trying to look and see if there's anything that I'm missing here roster-wise. There's no place. Jimenez and Slater would both have to go to the roster. Nobody wants to send Kjerstad down, but that can be the answer for one of them. For one of them, you can send Kjerstad down. But for the second one, the only options would be DFAing Arias, DFAing Pache just after you acquired him, or just simply not putting the other one on the team. And again, I don't know about, like, what does Austin Slater have? Jesus Christ.
The only plus that he's probably see out of him is he's a lifetime 274 hitter against lefties, but big whoop. That's what you got Jimenez for, in a way.
Well, and Jimenez, oddly, is hitting. If you look at his career numbers, he's actually a better career hitter against righties than he is against lefties. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I have watched enough. The White Sox are an abomination. Eloy Jimenez. Oh, man, hang on. I'll send you. Dude, this is the. Hang on. I'll share this audio. So I saw, in the radio show over on 105.7, we do a Twitter segment where I try to pull some interesting clips. And earlier in the week, I had seen this clip. Do you know, if I send you a link to a tweet, do you know how to pull it up and share it on? Could you at least play the audio? Even if we don't see the video, that would be fine. I'm going to forward you right now. Sorry, Grant's doing his best. He's doing his best. We're working on it. Very complicated, moving parts. So earlier in the week, I saw this clip of Ozzie Guillen, of course, the former White Sox shortstop and manager, who's now doing like pre- and post-game studio work for NBC Sports Chicago. And he was talking about the disastrous losing streak. Is it 15? Where is it for the White Sox now? My God. But he was talking about the disastrous losing streak. And he was calling guys out because apparently they were like walking around the clubhouse saying things like, I'm going to be traded. Like none of it even mattered to them because, I'm going to be traded. And his response was, who wants you? I'll get there. You're just going to play the audio.
Yeah.
Okay. His response was like, who wants you? And I wondered if he was talking about Jimenez specifically. Last night, NBC Sports Chicago was doing like a live trade deadline reaction show. And this is not Ozzie Guillen. This is just three of their other hosts. Their reaction live to the news of the Eloy Jimenez deal makes it seem like it was poisonous with Eloy Jimenez in Chicago. This was their reaction on NBC Sports.
Hold on.
Eloy!
No way.
That is not real.
I said this, if this happened on the podcast.
Come on. Jeff Passan reporting that the Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a deal to acquire outfielder.
He's been getting it in the air. He's been getting it in the air.
Sources tell ESPN. Are you kidding me?
All right, so what's all right, we don't know anything. What's the return?
Eloy, a flipping bag of balls. I wanted to say the other word.
I cannot believe it's come to that.
This is a joyous day. This is a joyous day. I've talked to you guys know where I sit with Eloy. He's that guy is as catastrophic of a failure as any player that's come through the rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, considering.
I can't believe a team would take him on. Can we get a thank you Orioles graphic made? Thank you instead of thank you Eloy. Thanks Cubs. Thanks Orioles.
White Sox dump outfielder Eloy Jimenez's contract. Sending him to the Orioles.
I like.
You like the dump?
Dump his contract.
So basically, he may not get anything in return. It might just be you guys pay the rest of his salary.
He dumped on us for 6 years.
Yeah. There you go. I think you can stop it. You can stop it. I think we got the point.
Wow.
Yeah. Now. Wow. Maybe it's just Eloy Jimenez was not the player that we thought he was going to be, and so we are not unhappy to see him go. But that feels a lot more personal than just wasn't the baseball player we thought he was going to be.
There's something else.
That feels more like, dude, this guy has sucked. Now, that doesn't really matter here because, as was pointed out by J.J. Cooper, there is not a commitment. If Eloy Jimenez is a problem, if he walks into the clubhouse and he's got an attitude issue, the Orioles can cut bait 2 days later. This is an experiment. It absolutely could last 5 minutes. But, that is just a hell of a response for getting rid of a baseball player. Like they wanted to throw a parade in Chicago because Eloy Jimenez is no longer their problem. And again, that doesn't mean I'm opposed. Trey Mago maybe could have been a helpful relief pitcher at some point for the ball. Maybe. But no one projected him as a legitimate major league arm, any sort of difference maker. I don't want to say he was to say he was a throwaway. I don't like using that term because it's like you're calling someone trash. And that's not fair. But he was not someone that was really viewed as having a major league future. He was looked at as likely a quad A type of player. Could he be on a major league roster because you need someone? Yes. But was he going to be a guy that was going to get to the bigs and stick? Probably not. So in that way, it's a price that you can pay to take on this experiment. But boy, taking on. I'm okay with it. I don't want to make it seem like this is impacting me. I am okay with them taking on the experiment of Eloy Jimenez. And if it ain't working, it ends. And in fairness, I gotta see. I can't pull up. This is the other problem with trade deadline. I want to get an answer on Austin Slater. Is there a world in which Austin Slater has a does he possibly have an option left? And I'm not sure whose roster to look at to get that answer. Because all right, let's see if he's on the Orioles roster resource page yet. Hey, hello. This is Glenn Clark looking at the internet. That's what you get. That's the high-quality stuff that you tuned in for over here on GCR. Yeah, they don't seem to have those guys yet on the Orioles. Oh, they do. And he has no options.
Really?
Well, I mean, I didn't think he's like 31 or something like that. I didn't know how he was gonna. It was just
the Giants probably exercised them all.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only thing I could think of is how, in trying to figure out how this works. Pache has none of these guys have options. You can almost bank on Heston Kjerstad being sent down. Just prepare yourself for it. That's happening. But what else is happening if they want to put these guys on the team? There's nothing that would make sense. There is no other logical move that you could make to get all these guys on the team unless someone gets hurt today. And, I'm not interested in that. There's no one else that I would say, boy, it would be really convenient if they, other than one of these guys. With all due respect to Christian Pache, that's the best case scenario, is that Pache is on the IL until the postseason so that you can use his speed and his defensive replacement, but you don't actually have to play him because he can't actually hit lefties. I have no idea. I got nothing for how they would possibly put Austin Slater on the roster. I can't come up with it. I cannot make that math, man. I am befuddled. I am open to suggestions. If you guys got an answer for what they can do to get these guys on the roster, by all means, please pass it along because I am lost. And I did not see I just did not see that there was a path for it. All right. Anyway, so we've talked about it all morning. I don't really have much more to say about it. We'll continue, over the next couple of days as these guys make debuts, as we get some of these answers. We'll continue to obviously discuss it. You guys know how I feel. I'm writing about it today at PressBoxOnline.com. I am at least passively fine with the moves that were made, but the back end of the bullpen, to the point, Eno Sarris has more confidence that Seranthony Dominguez could be a backup plan for Craig Kimbrell. I will at least take that into consideration, and I'll take that under advisement. He knows better than I do. I'll give him that. And there's not a track record there for Seranthony Dominguez, but the stuff perhaps suggests that he's someone they could convert in. It's a hell of a thing to do with a veteran, arguable Hall of Fame closer, is to say, dude, we're going to push you aside for someone that's never done it before and who hasn't been a leverage arm in the bigs. But if those are the roles they intend to use him in, if that's the temperament that they believe that he has, that would factor into my, if Seranthony Dominguez, we get to the end of the year and Seranthony Dominguez has proven himself to be a top-notch leverage arm / closing option, then you ask me again at the end of the year, hey, what did you think of the trade deadline? I'm going to have a far different response. There is no doubt about that. Still to come today, we will make a trip to Aberdeen to chat with Reed Trimble. A couple of things that I wanted to talk about from the world of football yesterday, a transaction for the Ravens, and big payment for a former Terp. We'll cover a few of those things next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Frederick Keys baseball is back. With 30 more home games beginning on July 2nd, the Keys are excited to welcome you back to Nimio Field at Harry Grove Stadium. We want to see you there. Countless promotions will be on display every game, with it ranging from Tap House Tuesdays to Firework Fridays and everything in between. For more information or to buy tickets, call 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Hagerstown, Maryland a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
There he is, Agent 00 Chicken. Nothing can keep him from Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. Because right now, he can get a 3-piece world-famous chicken box for just $8 with a portion of each sale donated to a local charity. Plus, register to win world-famous chicken for a year. Come to Royal Farms Chicken Palooza. It's a real thriller, but it's only for a limited time. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Escape to Ocean City, Maryland, and discover a place that just feels lighter, where every day feels like Saturday and French fries are a food group, where flip-flops are always in fashion and seafood is always in season, where the boardwalk is bustling and the beach is right outside your door, where you can rise with the tide and feel like a kid again. Ocean City, Maryland, somewhere to smile about. Book your trip at OCOcean.com.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR. Mike Elias said Eloy Jimenez will mostly DH. This is from Rock Cabaco. Albert Suarez likely long relief. Kobe Mayo is still in the mix. Ownership will maximize potential of the franchise. Still hope for a September return for Danny Coulombe. Very difficult trading Hayes, and he thanked him. And then this is the last note. Heston Kjerstad is, quote, a big part, unquote, of the second half. How? How is he on the roster? How? And again, I get that, like, if he was asked a question about Heston Kjerstad, he can't say, dude, we're about to option him. Like, you just don't do that. My buddy Connor Newcomb, Locked on Orioles, thinks that it's a Pache DFA in order to get Slater on the roster. And again, that's fine. But Pache is the one that does have a unique playoff skill set. I will not be crying over the loss of Christian Pache. And if they think if there's some word where they think Jorge Mateo could be back for the playoffs, which, given what we saw, I don't know how that's plausible. But the way that it was talked about was weird. Like, it was not like there was a commitment that he was definitively out for the season. Then that would make a difference. But Pache is the one guy of that group that you would look at and say, well, I would like that on a playoff roster. Maybe they've had some conversations and they think that if they DFA him, nobody else is picking him up and they can get him to Norfolk. Maybe. But it feels like if that was an option, the Phillies would have done that. There's so many people that were going to the wall for Christian Pache on Friday when I was having conversations about this. I'll get it. I'll get it if that's the way it plays out. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, two things really quickly, and then we're going to chat with Reed Trimble. One, if you missed it yesterday, bummer for our guy Malik Ham, who I love, Baltimore kid, back on injured reserve, and thought that he can end up being someone who's designated a return, but that's a tough spot to be in, having already missed the entirety of his first season, and now the start of his second season as an undrafted free agent. There is no certainty that there will be a spot for him. Just hurts to see that for a guy I like a lot. Ironically, his roster spot taken by another Baltimore guy, Quincy Roche. Newtown, right? Yeah, Newtown for Quincy Roche. Ends up getting that roster spot and gets thrown into the mix for the Ravens for the rest of the preseason. DJ Moore gets paid hefty. Yeah, thank you, yes, in confirming it was Newtown. Hefty contract extension for former Terp DJ Moore out in Chicago, who has really done a hell of a job just getting guaranteed money, man. $82.6 million guaranteed as part of a 4-year, $110 million extension for DJ Moore out in Chicago. And this morning, news from the AP, it's a question that a lot of us have asked a ton over the years. Why are we still doing chain gang measurements? With all of the technology that exists, how are we still doing this? Well, apparently, during the preseason, the NFL is going to be experimenting in different preseason games with technology that would be able to tell whether or not there was a first down. This is something that is going to be experimented with to replace the chain gang. From Rob Motti of the AP, NFL executive Gary Brantley told the Associated Press the league will test Sony's Hawkeye technology during some preseason games. The system most likely won't be ready for full implementation until next season, though it could happen sooner. The only part that I didn't get from reading this is if, like, that would be that they would use a chip in the ball too, like if they would use it for spotting the ball or just for line to gain measurements, because that is a good start, but the chain is a full 10 yards. I've never really had an issue with the chain necessarily. It's actually like the guesswork that's being done by the official about spotting the ball, with the thought being that if we had a chip inside the ball, presumably we could use that and Hawkeye technology, and we could get the appropriate spot of the football. I don't know how close we are to getting that, but that is something that's going to happen during the preseason. All right, it's time for us to make a trip to Aberdeen to chat with a member of the Ironbirds. Our next guest is having a very nice start to the season. He is not start. What are we talking about? We're past the midway point of the season. He is Ironbirds outfielder Reed Trimble, and he is with us now here on GCR. Reed, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, dude. Reed, I want to ask you just in general, what are these days like within a system? Like, you get to this week, you never know, like who might be somebody that another team's interested in. What are the days leading up to the trade deadline like inside of a clubhouse, inside of an organization?
I mean, it's hectic, for sure. I mean, you don't really know much. It's very like you get a phone call or the skip will bring you in or something like that. But it's when something happens, when a trigger gets pulled on somebody, and like in a trade or something like that, it's pretty crazy, to say the least.
I understand that, man. And obviously you get to this day and you sort of breathe a sigh. You're like, okay. We can just go on with our lives now for a little bit and go there. Reed, I know it's been a tough path for you, right, since you were drafted, just because of injuries and the time that you've lost. Do you finally feel like this season you have been able to sort of reclaim everything, like get back to the path, to the place where you feel like you should have been all along?
Yeah. I mean, I think, the injuries are tough, but it's part of it. And I think that's the path that I was always sort of, destined to have. I don't wish, not that I wish bad or wish anything different. I don't think I'd be in this position, playing well if I didn't have some of those things happen in the past. And it's really opened my mind and opened my eyes to other things too, like, just being grateful to, get out there and play. And I think that's why I'm having, so much fun this year. Just really enjoying almost everything, the ups and the downs, the long days, the short days, just, it's just really opened my eyes to the whole game, I guess.
Do you find a lot of guys say that, like when they are forced to be away from the game, not just what you talked about, the appreciation that you have for it, but you almost see the game in a different way. Have you felt a little bit like did any of the time away allow you to see something different about your approach, about the way that you played, that has helped improve you as a baseball player?
Yeah, for sure. This year, the other injuries, they took me out for a good while. But this year I was sidelined with a little hamstring deal, and but it wasn't too long. I think it was a little over a month that I missed. But I was able to work on some things down in Florida, and came back up, and I, made those adjustments, and in that sense of seeing it differently, like my approach and like things like that, I think it's really helped me. And but yeah, like I think that it's all viewed on like how you want to view it. If you view it as if you want to sulk about it, you can sulk about it. Nobody's going to stop you. But if you're focused on what you're doing, like how I thought I was, I don't think there was anything else that I could have been doing that wouldn't have got me where I am now.
We're chatting with Reed Trimble, the Aberdeen Ironbirds, here on GCR. Reed, I wonder, I'm going to present something to you. The more I talk to baseball people, the more they'll tell me, Glenn, stop mentioning batting average. Stop talking about it. We kind of don't care about that anymore. We care about OPS. That's the number that matters. I present that to you to say, like, how much of that has infiltrated, if Glenn Clark of a year ago would look at your numbers and say, I imagine you want to get that batting average up, right? And I'm still sure you probably do. But the fact that you've been able to get on base the way that you have, that the OPS is good, are you at a place now where, you really aren't all that concerned about batting average specifically?
Not really. I want hits for sure. I mean, everybody wants to be on base. But, as long as you're hitting the ball hard, it's going to fall, and eventually at least. But I think, the OPS deal, all that, it shows a little bit more on a sense of, hitting the ball hard for slug, for doubles, triples, homers, whatever else. And then, those, batting average, it'll sort of lie. If you're hitting 250, that doesn't look all that great, or anything lower, it doesn't look all that great, but people don't see all the line outs you have or something like that.
Do you feel good? Do you feel you're at the play again? Are you, obviously you want more of these balls to drop. I understand that, but do you feel good overall about where your approach is, about the quality of the at bats?
Yeah, I feel great. I think our whole organization, org-wide, we have a great, I don't know the word, I guess situation, but a great way of looking at things when it comes to swinging at good pitches and our swing decisions and making sure we're hitting balls in the zone. And whenever you're swinging at good pitches, I think that it'll all pan out itself, because you're swinging at good pitches, you're going to be swinging at pitches that you can do damage with and hit hard, and I think that's really showed up for me this year, especially.
Do you find yourself doing any of the okay, I know I've been through a lot, but I wake up, I am 24. We got to speed up the next part of this process. Do you find yourself saying, hey, I know I've needed to be patient to this point, but okay, and you almost have to prevent yourself from forcing anything because of it?
Yeah, I don't want to press. I pressed earlier when I came back, and it did not pan out very good for me.
Okay.
Had a little over streak, but one big thing I've been focused on the past couple weeks is just being where my feet are. You know, it's easy to look and to envy other people and like see where other guys are and be like, oh, I should be where he is, or I want to be where he is in the game.
Yeah.
You know, my timing is my timing. You know, I can't do anything to change that or you know, to change the past. And you know, I'm really just trying to, you know, be where my feet are and just have fun doing what I'm doing. And I think that's really showed this year so far.
All right, so I saw Eric Garfield shared something on Twitter about 2 months ago when you were down in Sarasota. Apparently, there was a foul ball that might have broken a window at Ed Smith Stadium. Is that correct?
Yep, that's true. I didn't know about that until I think my dad texted me about it or called me about it, one of the two.
Like saw it on Twitter.
And it was one of the it was one of the rehab games I was playing in, and I think I had like a hit, but it was like a jam shot or something, and I wasn't like very pleased with how the day went. He was like, "Hey, I saw you're doing some damage out there," and I was like, "Dude, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything." Yeah, and then he sent me like a screenshot of the window, and then I saw the swing, and I was like, "No way, I broke that window." But I think that's got to be a first for me, at least, doing anything like that.
So that's the question that I had, because like we all remember being oh my God, Reed, I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old right now, and I have told them stories because they're both playing baseball. And the other day, it's a very complicated story, but like my older son's been sick recently, and so when I wanted to do a little batting practice, and he begged me to do it somewhere that was shaded in our front yard, and he fouled a ball that ended up hitting the front porch. And he reminded me about a story that I told him about breaking my parents' window when I was a kid, you know, like throwing the ball against the wall. There's nothing as a kid when you break a window, it is like you have like murdered the family pet. Like you're going in like waiting for your dad to yell at you. So it's a twofold. Do you have any stories from being a kid and breaking windows? And are there any repercussions? Like, does anybody like message you like, hey, dude, you kind of broke a window? Does anybody in the organization ever say anything to you? Or are they just like, hey, that's the cost of doing business. That's the way that it works.
Nobody said anything to me yet. Hopefully keep it that way. But when I was younger, we were playing indoor baseball, and I was luckily not at my house. But I was with one of my friends growing up, and they broke a picture, and it was like, oh my gosh, like we're all screwed. And I was just as nervous as they were, because you know I was partaking, I was playing inside, whatever, and I for sure heard it from his parents too.
Oh no, dude! It is like you're just prepared. I mean, it really is almost like the scene in A Christmas Story where, like, you know, Ralphie is afraid of his dad coming home and he's just hiding. Like with every time I would break a window, I'd just be like, "Oh, I'm about to get it! Like this is gonna be the worst day of my year." And like it is just hell, man. Reed Trimble. Okay, Aberdeen will be back home this weekend. Saturday and Sunday games at Leidos Field at Ripken Stadium. Post-game fireworks on Saturday night. Sunday, family fun day, and Military Appreciation Sunday as well. Reed, where can Orioles fans be giving you a follow on social media?
Twitter, Instagram, just Reed Trimble. That's it.
That's it.
But yeah, y'all come follow me and reach out if y'all like to.
Reed, glad you're healthy. Great to see you producing. Can't wait to see what's next for you moving forward, man. Best of luck. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning, dude.
Yeah. Thank you. Glad to be healthy. I really appreciate the call and the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank y'all.
Reed Trimble with us here on GCR. Appreciate him doing that. And again, very good to see him healthy and producing. I put it out there. The responses that I've got, it just really it seems like everybody thinks that somehow they're going to try to sneak one of Pache or Slater through waivers and get him back to AAA. And maybe, right? It seems like a weird trade to make for Slater. I get it. Like, you don't have you maybe you had some conversations that made you feel like he would clear waivers, but if that was the case, I don't know, man, it's weird. Is it impossible? Of course it's not impossible. We remember there was in previous years there was a second trade deadline where guys would have to clear waivers before they could be dealt. And there was kind of like a little bit of honor among thieves, like, dude, don't mess with anybody here. Don't screw with things. Don't be the team that steps in front because you're going to want to do something similar. It really felt like that was the era of every now and then that wouldn't be the case. Who was the team last year? Was it the Angels that just started putting players on, like, good, helpful players on waivers?
Yeah, Grichuk, Renfroe, right after they acquired them,
and
too.
The Guardians ended up getting, like, a couple of them, right?
Yep.
It's always such a weird bit. It is totally plausible that you could do this with Austin Slater. It does feel like a weird trade to make. Like, I guess the Giants said, dude, if you're not willing to give us something, we won't put him on. We refuse to put him on waivers. I guess that could work. And again, I guess you could get Pache through. I guess maybe. I don't know which one I would prefer to have on the major. Like, which one would you prefer to try to put through? I don't know. Again, it's like the Slater hasn't really hit anything this year, so his history of hitting lefties is real. But he hasn't been doing it this year.
And Jimenez's numbers against lefties are better.
Yeah, Jimenez's numbers. Well, Jimenez is on the roster. There's no doubt with Jimenez.
So
to me,
really
it's
Slater.
between Pache and Slater.
I'd go Slater.
You say that, but like Pache is the one that has a skill set that would be desirable.
I said outright Slater.
You'd outright Slater the two and keep
because
Pache.
To your point, the speed and the defense of Pache could prove valuable in the playoffs. That's why I meant to say.
I just don't like using a roster spot on either one of them. This really comes back to, but now you've got Pache on the roster instead of Heston Kjerstad is what that ends up being.
And then we say postseason. We're still 2 months away from that too. So it's like, yeah.
Like I would rather they try to put both of them. And try to see if they can get both of them to clear waivers would be my preference in this scenario. We'll see. Decisions that will have to be made in the next couple of days. And I know that I'm kind of obsessing over things that are minimal. Today's show is also brought to you by the print issue of Pressbox, which is still available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms. They have hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. You can read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. That's Wes Moore on the cover, the governor of the state of Maryland. We had a sports conversation with the governor, and you can find that, also our travel issue. So summer's not over yet. Still a few weeks before the kids go back to school. Find some sports tourism info inside this print issue for you to take advantage of this summer. Proctor, freaking out about Glass. Who gives an S about Glass? Yes, as a kid, genuinely, you broke a window, and I mean, I probably broke 3 or 4 windows because I was very much someone that like constantly thought if I threw a ball against a wall repetitively that like it would make me a better baseball player. Like, and it was also before like the era where everybody had one of those like bungee nets that you could throw the ball against. Yeah. Like I'm talking about, you got to.
I remember those.
I was a kid in the late '80s, early '90s, and I think those existed, but like they were not readily available. Like you couldn't just go to like the neighborhood Walmart and get one. You might have to special order it somewhere or something like that. So I 1,000% was someone who was throwing balls against walls constantly, and I definitely broke. Or when we were taking batting practice and. It was awkward because we had this side yard at my parents' house that I would use, and then there was a main road that was too close, and I very nearly hit a car, and so my father banished me from using the side yard. And I was like, well, okay, so I went to the backyard, But then from the backyard, I ended up breaking a window, which I guess was a better result than busting somebody's car because it's our window and
you couldn't catch a break.
Right? Like, so I just remember when it would happen, like I remember my friends would just be like, all right, dude, see ya. Because my father was the type that had a big, surprising if you've met me, had this like big, he still does. Not as much. He's getting older. But like he had this big voice and like it would boom. And when he was mad, he was mad. Now, in hindsight, I do remember every time we just went and fixed the window. Like that's all we did. Each time we just went, we got a new window, and he and I would put it in together, and it would be the whole thing. But the moment of it's the whole that feeling of getting admonished. Admonished, is that the word I was looking for? I sometimes
annihilated.
Well, that, but I don't think it was by your father. That moment was just that was the suck.
But you knew it was coming,
and it was the build up to it. It was that it would be better if he was just at home when it happened, because then you could just get it over with. But instead, you couldn't get on with your day because you could have no real joy for anything. Like if it was a summer day and you broke a window and Dad wasn't getting home until 6 o'clock, that day was ruined. When you broke a window at 10:30 in the morning, this is also not the era of cell phones. So like Mom couldn't take a picture and send it to Dad to ease the blow. She didn't want to call the office like it was some emergency. Imagine calling the office. And again, you got to go back to the era. Like in that era,
sounds like hell.
You called the office when someone was in the hospital. Otherwise, it could be dealt with at 6 o'clock. Imagine Mom calling the office
for a broken window.
Can I speak to Tom,
nice.
please? What's the fire? Well, there's a broken window. You're calling me at work about this. So for 6+ hours, you're just trying to you're trying to go play, go have fun with your friends in the neighborhood, roll in the dirt, get maybe scratched up a little bit, jump off stuff, that type of stuff, kid stuff. And you just want to spend your day that way.
But paralyzed.
You can't. You can have no joy because any moment you think you're having fun, you're reminded that come 6 o'clock, you are just about to be ripped a new one. Sucks. Or it sucked. I don't know if that's still a fear that my kids have. I'm telling you. Thank you, John Proctor. Only the wealthy kids had those nets back then. That's correct. Now all the kids have them. Because you can just go down to Target and get a net for like, I don't even know. We got one for my kid. It wasn't that expensive. Everybody's got them. But back then, oh, man, that was the kid. That was the kid. They had the newest Nintendo in their basement. Like, that was the kid. Their parents, if you spent the night there, you might be able to sneak and watch Skinamax because they definitely had the premium channels. We only had, Proctor said, we only got one window, which was on the shed, not the house. Lower stakes, 100%. So this was something that happened later. If you drove, my parents have never fixed it. When I got out of baseball and in like my middle school, teenage years, became a tennis player, I then there was one part of the garage that could get a good bounce. So I would blast tennis balls off of that part of the garage. And you can still see it was, I guess, shingled. The paint marks. Because it was a red, and I wrecked it. Like, I wrecked it. They've never bothered to repaint it. Never. They've never asked me to come repaint it either, and it's definitely my fault.
Way to leave your mark,
I'm pretty sure I also, because sometimes then I would go to other parts of the garage and then to try to get a different bounce off that side of the garage on the tennis ball, and I'm pretty sure I definitely messed up the shingles on that part of the garage too. My parents never asked me to. I don't know if they just didn't know somehow. I don't know what they thought occurred that. They never bothered to look. They never asked me to replace it, and I never will.
Way to leave your mark.
Never will. It's your problem now, Mom and Dad. Your problem. All right, let me get to a couple other responses that came in during the course of the show. I apologize. Matt Torper says, I would have preferred giving up Holiday to get Skubal and let Norby be our second baseman of the future. I think the problem with that is, based on what we saw the cost of other pitching was, it's pretty clear that Holiday alone was not getting you Skubal. That the Skubal cost was going to be more like Holiday. Remember all those tweets that we made fun of from like Tigers fans? Like, yeah, I'll move Skubal for Holiday and Kjerstad and Mayo. We're all like, okay, keep smoking, kid. Well, it seems more and more based on what the price was for not very good pitching. It seems more and more like that really was the price for Skubal. And the Orioles just said, I don't think that there was a world in which you could have gotten Skubal for Holiday straight up.
No.
I don't know if they would have, if you, in that, like, that hypothetical, that's actually not a bad Would You Rather Wednesday scenario. Yeah, one for one, if you could have done Holiday for Skubal and kept Norby to be your second baseman instead, I'll listen to that argument. I just don't think there was a world in which Holiday alone was netting you Skubal, and that's the reason why nobody ended up trading for Skubal. I think that the Tigers were looking for the type of package that the Nationals got for Soto, which just teams weren't going. You're not going to do that for a non-everyday player. Like, you can't do that. And that's the reason why Tarek Skubal ended up not being dealt. From Jeff. Jeff says I'm not angry about any of the moves they made. I don't understand Orioles fans who are angry about any of the moves that they make. I guess at the end of the day, I don't really think that they're any closer to winning a World Series, and so all of it is very blah to me. I posed, I don't remember which of our guests today I posed that to, like, are they closer to winning a World Series? And the Eflin move is the only one that you can argue for that you could say on paper, because it does give you a better option to start Game 3 of a playoff series, you can say that one is a move that you can buy, gets you closer to winning a World Series. Everything else, it's really hard to argue that. Like, you can argue, again, in the margins why it might work, but the Eflin move, I can't escape that. None of the moves yesterday I can feel that way about. But the Eflin move, I've got to say, is one to me that does help improve your chances of winning a World Series. And yeah, my buddy Tim Richardson, they should have just traded Kjerstad, as they clearly don't value him on this roster. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I just don't know what was out there for Kjerstad alone, right? Like that's if what you're saying is you should have used Kjerstad to go get Yefedi, maybe. I don't know what this ends up looking like at the end of the year. I still think they probably try to trade Ryan Mountcastle at the end of the year. I don't know if they're going to bring back Anthony Santander. I think they should try, but there are potential ways for. Now, Kobe Mayo gets thrown into this mix as well. I really think the thing that hurts Heston Kjerstad the most is we saw him play left field. How do you justify more Heston Kjerstad in left field? I can't. And that's the only spot that was available, briefly, as Kowser was struggling and or the idea of trading Mullins. But once you saw Heston Kjerstad in left field, you found yourself saying, oh, no, can't do it. Now, maybe there's a world in which they DFA both Pache and Slater and hope that both pass through waivers and they keep Kjerstad on the roster, but I'm still not sure where the playing time comes from. Consistent playing. I don't think there's any consistent playing time to be had. Live Casino and Hotel is the best place to watch all of the big events, particularly what's going on over in Paris right now. They've got the giant 100-foot media wall. They've got great food and drink specials. You're just steps away from the FanDuel Sportsbook, and it's an amazing atmosphere. On top of that, Live Casino Rewards members have the opportunity to earn discounts on cash and credit purchases at the casino. Join the Live Casino Rewards Club online or in person at Live today. See complete details at livecasinohotel.com. Let's start to wind things down because there's a baseball game. Let's get a tidbit.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to Margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, Grant, what you got for us today for tidbits?
I want to stay on the topic of Jackson Holliday because it is a happy holiday with his return. We do know last year he was named the Baseball America Minor League Prospect of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 other Orioles in the history of the award since it was introduced that have won it. Who are those 2?
Minor league in the history of I don't know when they started this award.
The first award was 1981.
1981. How about Ben McDonald?
Nope, he's not on there.
Like, you're inclined to go with top picks, so like Adley Rutschman.
No. That would make sense though.
So the 2 number 1 picks.
Bobby Witt got it over Rutschman. I think that
okay.
year you're thinking about.
Bobby Witt's pretty good. He's okay. How about Matt Wieters?
Ooh, you got that one. 08. That's as far back as we go, though.
Manny Machado.
No, I think Trout beat him out that year. Because I'm looking at the years we would have thought they would have won the award, and yeah,
was
Trout
it Gunnar? Was that?
You got it.
Okay.
There you go. Do you want another holiday tidbit?
If it's quick.
Yeah. Just named the 4 picks that came after a Holiday in the first round of that draft. So he was picked number 1. Who were the 4 that were behind him?
Oh God! So I got to remember. Okay, because we actually did a lot of content that year about who the number 1 pick should be. So I feel like I'm gonna end up. So I don't know if he was one of the 4, but I do remember we talked a lot about Elijah Green.
He was number 5 to the Nats.
Okay.
I feel like I remember he was a consensus top number 1 pick too.
Well, the year before, like the summer before, that was the guy. Yeah. Elijah Green was the guy that was going to go number 1, and that was kind of neat because again, his father played for the Ravens, and so it was like going to be a cool story if he ended up being in Baltimore. But speaking of fathers, was that Drew Jones?
You got it,
Yeah.
number 2. I thought he was going to be the number 1 pick. That's who I predicted.
I remember the guy that was connected to the Orioles. Like, everybody's talking about them. They could go underslot for Brooks Lee, but did he go in the top 5?
He went 8 to the Twins. So not far off.
All right, so then I'm down to... Oh, God.
It's interesting that only one of these picks went to college. Yeah.
Only one of them went to college.
Everybody else was drafted out of high school.
Was that
actually one went to Vandy, but he ended up in another league.
Oh, that was Kumar Rocker.
Yeah,
right.
so my bad.
Two
Collegiate guys, 3 high school players.
So who was the other one that went to college?
Well, Green was the other one that went to college. So
Green
you got
went to
that one.
Green went to college?
IMG Academy.
That's not college.
Okay, never mind.
That's a high school. Or it's not. I mean, technically it's a high school, but it's not. It's like it's prep. That's high school level.
Okay.
I mean, they tell you it's a high school, but you're there for baseball or whatever sport you play.
So then your last option's a high school pick.
Another high school pick. I don't remember. Who is the team?
Pirates.
God. All right, tell me.
Termarr Johnson went number 4.
Yeah, he did. And that was something that was we talked about him a little bit connected to the Orioles, but there was never really any momentum for. I remember Brooks Lee being the one guy because I think there was he might have been named after Brooks Robinson. There was definitely
and that's why they would have wanted him.
There was not. It's not why the Orioles would have wanted him.
It would have been cool.
It's what made the story interesting.
Right.
There was definitely some momentum that the Orioles were considering going under slot in order to get Brooks Lee, but ultimately they took Jackson Holliday, who is batting 8th today. All right, very good. Let's get Totally Tubular.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. Of course, the Orioles and the Mariners play the finale of their 4-game series. We mentioned a couple of times Grayson Rodriguez is on the mound for the Birds, 12:35 on Masson. What is Paolo Espino? Because that is what will start for the Blue Jays today. I don't know a thing about Paolo, but that's who's going for Toronto, Paolo Espino. Tonight, you can watch it on Triller at 8 o'clock, the Stateside Cup from Annapolis, Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium, Crystal Palace and Wolves getting together. I will say I had a listener who was a winner who has a sick daughter who has said that if somebody else could use the tickets, I've got 4 tickets. If you want to go tonight, hit me up at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, GlennClarkRadio@gmail.com. Just say, hey, I'd like to take my kids. Crystal Palace and Wolves tonight in Annapolis, and you can also watch it on Triller. Olympics coverage continues. It looked like, by the way, a couple things going on. The U.S. right now, I've been watching women's volleyball. They took the first 2 sets from Serbia, but they are in trouble in the third. Earlier today, there was a dramatic women's beach volleyball between the 2 of them in France. That was awesome. Nothing that was as good as the rugby yesterday was the great. I screamed so loud in this. Poor Leah, who runs our office, thought something terrible had happened. Came like racing in. I was like, oh my God. The rugby, Spiff Cedric, American hero, that ruled. The Olympics rule. That was the coolest sports moment of the year. Oh, I loved it. Still to come today. Lot still to come. By the way, American Danielle Collins showing some fight against Iga Swiatek, who everybody just assumed was winning the gold medal because she's dominant at Roland Garros. Got blown out in the first set, 1 set 2. So they're going to a third set in that match today. Bad news continues for Coco Gauff as she's out in the doubles as well. She and Jessie Pegula were losers today. In the men's side, Taylor Fritz a loser. But still to come today, the men's basketball team, remember South Sudan played them to a 1-point game in their exhibition matchup. They play again this afternoon, 3 o'clock in the Olympics. That's on USA. The women's soccer team also in action today against Australia. That's at 1 o'clock on E! 3-on-3 basketball stinks. I tried watching it yesterday. It should not be an Olympic sport. It does not justify being in the Olympics. Sorry, you can be mad, but the men's team plays Poland today at 4:30. They lost to Serbia yesterday. Round 1 of the Olympic golf tournament gets underway overnight tonight, 3 a.m. on the Golf Channel. Everything else, just go to GlennClarkRadio.com. We don't have time for all of it. You can find it all there as far as Totally Tubular is concerned. All right. Thanks today to Eno Sarris. Thanks also to J.J. Cooper, to Reed Trimble, and to Mike Bordick. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the...
Oh, my God. It's so good.
Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Well done, Grant. Tomorrow on the program, I know that Navy football coach Brian Newberry is going to join us. They're getting into the swing of things with practice and looking ahead to the fall. So we'll have our first conversation this season with Navy coach Brian Newberry. And I'm sure more baseball stuff and the stuff and things. I'm sure all of that will be coming tomorrow. All right, very good. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Easy Pass Maryland, as well as Live Casino and Hotel, Ocean City, Cruise Maryland, visit Hagerstown and Washington County, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, the Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costas Inn, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Thanks to Grant.
20G DeVivo on Instagram.
Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Wednesday evening. Go Birds, go Team USA's. Duke sucks.